The football poll question is how we're going to start our conversation with our friend from the MMQB and Sports Illustrated, Albert Breer, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Albert?
I'm good. I drive at 10 and 2, and only in inclement weather, though.
Okay.
So,
Smart.
when it's raining, I find myself doing that. When it's raining hard enough or it's snowing. I guess you guys don't experience that much out there, but where it just feels like your car, you don't have full control. Then I'll go 10 and 2, but normally I don't. I'll admit that.
But rain out here is akin to snow, Albert.
Right.
To the point where, if pre-pandemic, sitting there in Staples and tip off of a Laker game, and there's really only a quarter of the place filled up, it's because it was raining outside. I'm serious.
I've actually white knuckle conditions out there, right?
Yeah, no question about it.
Yeah, I mean, have you tried? Have you lost your ability to drive in snow, having been out there for 20 years now?
Oh no, man! And actually, it's driving out here is better coming from the East Coast. Is Brockman will tell you. Tell Mr. Breer what your Olympic sport you would have gold medaled in. If this was an actual Olympic sport.
My Olympic sport is being in the far left lane and crossing over 4 lanes of traffic to make the exit under a quarter mile.
I'm an expert too. And I'd also be a medalist in the when the highway reduces a lane, riding the extra lane all the way up.
All the way to the last end.
That works here in Los Angeles because everybody kindly lines up to leave a right lane exit in the right lane. Oh, not us. Not us. That comes in handy.
Also,
but we shouldn't give up our tricks publicly here on the mightier 1090 in Southern California. We should not give up our tricks.
I mean, you could probably really easily tell who's from the I-95 corridor between Washington and Boston up there, right? It's probably really easy to
By
tell.
the way, we've now done a 7-minute parallel parking segment with Bobby Cannavale in the first 3 minutes of a chat with Albert Breer on driving in traffic. How would you answer our poll question of the day, football-wise, Albert? The quarterback recently drafted in the top 5 in the NFL. Which one's going to have a better 2021? The choices are, give him to him, Chris Brockman. I know this is your job. I don't mean to, I should stay in my lane, to use that phrase. What do you have over there?
Yeah, better 2021, Albert. Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Tua, or Joe Burrow?
Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Tua, or Joe Burrow? That's a good one. That's a really good one. I want to say Joe Burrow because I think he's the best player, but I would say Tua probably has the best situation of those 4, right? The most infrastructure around him, the most built-up team. So, I mean, give me Burrow just because I think Burrow is pretty special. But, I mean, man, that's tough. That's a really good question because I think Sam is going to play better, too, in Carolina. And mostly because I think they're going to ask less of him. They're going to put it on Christian McCaffrey to carry that offense, and so Sam Darnold's going to be able to play in a way I think that's different than he's ever played before.
Well, I mean, the question about Tua that we had Jeff Darlington on in hour number 1 to talk about his report that Brian Flores felt compelled to address Charles Robinson's Yahoo report that Deshaun Watson was on their radar screen. And they were front runners to go get him in a trade that eventually didn't happen. That he felt compelled to address his locker room on that Tua's the guy. Is what is the evaluation of Tua? And I'm mystified as to why the Dolphins would be willing. Obviously, Deshaun Watson with no baggage, that's a no-brainer. But to kick the tires on trying to get Watson now without even sending Tua away in a trade, I don't understand it. I don't get it. What is the evaluation of Tua from what you're hearing based on this preseason and training camp?
Yeah. So, I think I'm going to reference what you're insinuating here is that if they traded for Deshaun, Tua wouldn't necessarily be a part of that deal to go to Houston. And I think that my understanding of that is the driver there wouldn't be the Dolphins so much as it would be the Texans. And this is something that I think is kind of an interesting piece to the whole idea that Deshaun Watson could be traded, and whether or not it happens, now in October, November, December. I was told pretty strongly by several people not to assume that some other team's quarterback is going to be viewed by the Texans as an asset. And so, I think what I'm what was conveyed to me is Nick Caserio, the general manager there, might rather have an extra draft pick over a Tua, a Drew Lock, a Sam Darnold, or a Jalen Hurts, who'd be the 4 quarterbacks with the teams that, I think have been most connected to Deshaun over the last few weeks. So that's, where that is. The evaluation of Tua, I think the jury's still very much out. And I think just having as weird a rookie year as he did, where they put him in, and generally once you put your first-round quarterback in, you don't take him out, yet the Dolphins wound up pulling Tua back out. I think the question really with Tua is, he was just okay last year, and physically there's nothing that really stands out about him. And the really interesting thing about this, Rich, is, go back and look at the last 10 years of quarterbacks who have come into the NFL, right? The first-round quarterbacks have come into the NFL. How many guys have come into the NFL where you could look at them and say there's not something special about them physically, whether they're an incredible athlete, have a huge arm, they're physically huge. The guys who've really made it, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, but the guys that have really flashed, Carson Wentz, how many of those guys aren't special physically? And I'm not talking about the Bradys of the world, because it's a long time ago. I'm talking about guys who came into the league over the last 10 years. How hard is it to find? It's really hard. Jared Goff, Derek Carr, those guys made it, but were those guys ever considered top 10 players at the position? Right? And if that's what you're shooting for, and you're looking at it and you're questioning, can Tua get there? Not can he be a competent quarterback, can he get there? And then the opportunity to go out and get a Deshaun Watson comes along. I think that's sort of part of the evaluation. It's not so much that Tua isn't going to be able to get out of his own way as an NFL quarterback. It's, how far are we going to be able to really take this with him?
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. The conversation coming out of Jacksonville today, twofold. One, the Saints are going to play their first game there this year because of Hurricane Ida. It's going to be Saints versus Packers there, and we'll have, I guess, time to talk about that. But the conversation is based on Urban Meyer saying that the team considered vaccination status and whether somebody should stay or not. And there's such a huge to-do about that. The Players Association says that they're going to open an investigation. And the thing I don't quite understand about it is corporate America writ large from the NFL corporately and other corporations. What AT&T were on their campus right here is another one. Fox for their news division as well, mandating people to be vaccinated. I just uploaded my vaccination card during the commercial break, actually, because I did not know I had to do it again. What's the disconnect? Why is there such a hullabaloo about this, Albert?
It's because the players are unionized and the rest of the NFL employees, most of them aren't. And so the league, the teams can put in protocols that basically require all their employees to get vaccinated except for the players, and the players, that has to be negotiated with the union. And so I understand why the union is, coming out and, I guess kind of rattling cages on that. That said, what Urban is referencing here was created by the union, right? In part, they negotiated those protocols with the league, and they knew it was going to be hard for an unvaccinated player to operate like a normal NFL player in 2021 as a result of it. And, they knew that they were creating an environment where roster decisions realistically were going to have to be made on certain guys. And I'm not talking about, who your starting quarterback is or who, one of your starting receivers are, but once we get to the point in the roster where you're talking about the 40th guy or the 45th guy in the roster, of course, yeah. If two guys are even at that point, are you going to take the guy who can walk around freely and isn't randomly going to have to disappear for 5 days because something went wrong, over the guy who, is going to be subject to those rules? Of course you are. So, I understand what the union is doing here, but I also, I think it's important to point out they were part of creating these rules, and I think these rules are designed to to keep everybody safe. And I always think it's silly. Now look, I have a pretty good handle on who Urban is, and I think Urban sometimes can be a little unaware of certain things around him, and so I'm not sure he really understood that he couldn't come out and say what everybody is saying behind closed doors. But I just don't know what the point of having an argument over this is. It's like, it is what it is. Like it's going to be harder for certain guys to make teams. It's going to be harder for certain street free agents to get picked up because they're unvaccinated. That's part of the equation here. I mean, through the rules, the NFL and NFLPA have very heavily incentivized getting the shots.
Well, and Belichick was asked in New England whether that played a role in the release of Cam Newton. He said no. He did talk about the efficacy of the vaccine, which was an interesting response. But the question about Cam is did he ask for his release? What do we know? Because obviously Belichick would not allow anything on that front either. What do you hear about Cam's release?
I don't think Cam asked for his release. I don't know that for sure, but just based on a few things I have heard and putting two and two together, I don't think this was a result of him asking out. I think everybody sort of knew the score here, which is Cam was either going to be there as a starter or he wasn't going to be on the team at all. And so I think when they make the decision to go with Mac, like most other teams that have first-round quarterbacks, then the priority becomes, what can we do to create the best environment for our rookie quarterback to perform as a rookie? And, I think a huge part of it is what sort of resources can you put in the room for him? That's why Brian Hoyer is going to be back on the roster maybe by the end of the day, because he'll be a great resource having all the background in the system that he does for Mac Jones. And the other thing is, I think you want to avoid a situation where there's going to be something hanging over the rookie. And bottom line is, if you've got a player of the stature of Cam Newton standing on the sideline, you have to, and this isn't Cam's fault, but you have to worry about the fact that hey, if he has a couple games where he throws 3 picks and then 4 picks, there's going to be people calling and saying there's going to be people calling for Cam to go in the game, and it could create a problem internally for you. And so I just think that it was never. I don't think Cam was ever going to be on the Patriots roster as a backup, and I think that's more about supporting the rookie quarterback than anything else. I don't think it has anything to do with anything Cam did right or wrong. I just think it's when you decide, okay, we're going with the rookie, we're going with Mac Jones. Then you have to make sure that you create the best environment for him. And I actually think it's very akin, Rich, to the Dolphins letting Ryan Fitzpatrick go after this year. Because when you make the decision you're going to go with Tua, you can't have everything that happened last year with Fitz hanging over him.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show. You mentioned to us a couple Fridays ago a terrific insight about how in Chicago you were hearing about Andy Dalton's ability to communicate a play to each position group within the huddle based on the verbiage of the play being specifically in the play call for that position group. And Justin Fields was just blurting it out because he's memorizing stuff, and that's part of the maturation process that Matt Nagy wants to work on. And now we're waiting to see how long Dalton's going to be in there, because he's going to be in there, and we're waiting to see how long Justin Fields needs to stay in the maturation, process, because Belichick's now going with his guy right off the bat, and I'm wondering how that all plays together in Chicago prior to this Week 1 Andy Dalton start, and how long that's going to last based on your hearing right now.
I think it's going to be really – I think one thing that everybody can pay attention to that's going to be a tell, who dresses for that Sunday night opener against the Rams, okay? I think this is one thing that, I think is a nuance to every one of these situations where a rookie isn't starting right off the bat that people need to pay attention to. If you are truly in it to preserve your rookie and to not play your rookie, and you don't think he's ready, and what he needs is a red shirt, you know what you do, Rich? You don't dress him for the game. You throw somebody else on the roster as the backup, and you have the rookie watching from the press box because you do not want to put him in the game. That's what the Packers did last year with Jordan Love. Jordan Love, I believe, still hasn't dressed for a regular season game, crazy as that sounds, as an NFL player. So, I think a lot of Justin Fields' readiness to get out there, we're going to see it on whether or not they decide to dress him for the regular season opener against the Rams. Because generally, if you carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and the Bears are, 2 of the 3 quarterbacks dress, and the third one doesn't. So the Bears are either going to dress Fields and not Foles, dress Foles and not Fields, or dress both of them. But if they dress Fields, that tells me they feel pretty good about where he's at. And so, I know a lot's been done to try to accelerate the process. And part of it is learning the verbiage like we talked about, I think it was last week when we talked about this. And now it sort of moves into a different phase where Justin's going to have to do some of that learning on his own because he's going to run the scout team. This is another story that I think is going to be really interesting too, because and I know I'm being long-winded here, but I think that there's something really interesting here to parallel to Patrick Mahomes in 2017.
Please.
One of the things that Matt Nagy was most impressed by when he was the Chiefs offensive coordinator in 2017, working with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes wasn't playing. Mahomes ran the scout team during the week, so he wasn't running the Chiefs offense during the week, right? So he'd go in and he'd be running the Raiders offense or the Chargers offense or whoever they were playing that week. So after practice, every day, every single day, he would stay out there for an extra half hour, 45 minutes, and he would do it so he could run the Chiefs offensive plays. He'd do this on his own. And what he did was he would take receivers and running backs and tight ends, but he would never take Tyreek Hill. He would never take Kareem Hunt. He would never take Travis Kelce with him. Why? Well, he didn't take those guys with him because he knew those were Alex's guys, and I do not want to upset the ecosystem of this team. And he did it on his own, and the coaches were so impressed by that. And so this is part of like Matt's whole, I think, evaluation of Justin Fields is now that he's out of the quarterback competition, for now at least, what's he going to do? Like, how is he going to treat that time? And I think having seen Patrick Mahomes do that, like, that's a huge part of why Mahomes was so ready in 2018 and wins the MVP. Will Justin handle this the way that Patrick Mahomes does? I think if he does, and now all of a sudden you get to week 4, week 5, the team's struggling, the offensive line can't protect Dalton, then maybe there's a chance for Fields to get in there.
So let me voice the Bears fan here because I think they're going to have a say, personally.
Yep.
Is that, okay, the evaluation of Mac Jones was completed, obviously, yesterday by New England. The evaluation of Trevor Lawrence allegedly was evaluated and completed by last week. And Zach Wilson's evaluation was completed prior to draft day, right? And the evaluation of Trey Lance technically is still going on. He's banged up right now, but I think we know that Shanahan's going to at least have some plays for him in the playbook.
Yep.
A Bears fan hearing all this sounds very diligent, and it sounds very, very, what's the word for it? Careful, okay?
Yeah.
It sounds diligent, careful. It sounds responsible. That's the word for it. It sounds responsible.
Yeah.
But come on, like... Right? I mean, like, it's not like the kid played for a Division III school in Ohio. He played for The Ohio State. And I know I'm talking your language here. So I just don't know how long we can keep on evaluating him. It's certainly when you see how many kids in their second year, third year are more advanced because of what they did get in their first year.
Right. So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
and I understand what you're saying, and that's why I think like some of this isn't going to depend on Andy Dalton himself. Okay, and like if you look at the history of it, and I'm talking going back 20 years, right? Like I've done research on this over and I'm sure people out there have seen the chart that I tweet out from time to time. There was I would say a paradigm shift in 2008 with Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco. And it was because those teams didn't just start those guys from the beginning, from week 1. Those guys won with those guys. The Falcons made the playoffs coming out of just a ridiculously horrible Michael Vick situation in year 1 with Matt Ryan. And the Ravens that year got to the AFC Championship game with Joe Flacco. Since then, you've seen more and more teams going with rookies early, okay? And I think since then there's been 41 quarterbacks to go in the first round. Of those 41, only 3 were true redshirts. Jake Locker, Patrick Mahomes, and Jordan Love. You want to know what all 3 of those teams had in common? All 3 of those teams contended all the way to the end of the season. 2 of them made the playoffs. So to keep the rookie off the field, you needed competent quarterback play, and those 3 teams got it from Matt Hasselbeck, Alex Smith, and Aaron Rodgers. But you also needed to be contending deep into the season. And so, like, my answer to what you're saying is – this all looks good. This all seems responsible. It only works if the team's a contender. If the team struggles early on, there will be a lot of pressure on everybody in that building to get Justin Fields on the field. And my guess is you'll see him sooner rather than later. If the team, is on pace to win 11, 12 games, and Andy Dalton's playing well, we're talking about something else. So I think a lot of this rides on not just the success of Andy Dalton, but what the team around him is doing.
Well, its first game is right up the road here in the stadium, in the new stadium where the Super Bowl is being played, and it's a huge game because it's the first time with fans here in Los Angeles for that stadium for a regular season game. It's such a huge game that Brockman's not even going to sell his tickets to somebody else. He's planning on going. So that's how big the game is, Albert, if you want to put that nugget in your next column.
Heard you got a nice new office up there, too, huh?
Well, I'm checking it out next week. I have not been there yet. The swan song to the old Culver City studio is Tuesday. We're doing the season opener show Tuesday.
Honestly, if I was local, I would definitely come up for that, man. That's crazy. Yep. I mean, it's gonna be weird the next time I'm in LA and if I drive by there, not seeing the signs and everything.
Yeah, right? We're moving into the right next to the new stadium. There's a ribbon cutting next Wednesday, and then our first show's there from Thursday kickoff, then Sunday game day morning. I haven't been there yet. I can't wait to see it.
Are you guys outside? Is the set going to be outside or is it inside?
No, it's inside. Right? It's inside. But as you know, over the last several years, for the demo set, which is the phrase used in television, where we demo plays on a football field, that's basically like 8 yards by 8 yards, and it's made to look bigger by the shot. The football demo field is outside, and it is huge, and the stadium's in the background. That I know. Can't wait.
That's great.
Can't wait. And it's crazy. Yeah. There's the Albert Breer wing. I don't know. So they're thinking of you still, Albert.
all my contributions there.
Well, actually, Albert, I will say this.
Hey, if they want to put a plaque up, I think I can carve out some time to sit for that. Or maybe even a bus.
I will say this, Albert.
I could find some time in my schedule to sit for that.
I will say this, that I was not on the Zoom, the NFL media group on-air symposium Zoom because the Rich Eisen Show is on during it 2 days ago. But I knew it was going on because the number of texts that went around from everybody that you know saying, "Where's Breer?" Because you were such a star of those year in and year out.
Oh, yeah. Days. I remember one in particular. Yeah. There was one where I didn't hold my feelings back.
No, it's great, and we're still talking about it, Albert. But the bottom line is we're thinking of you, and we miss you. You're the best.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. I miss you guys too.
Take care. That's Albert Breer, everybody, the MMQB senior NFL reporter. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.